Silencio. I'm also just going to send the link. Someone asked. We got a good comment in the group, so I'm going to just give that person a moment to sign in and see that we are live.
In the Discord?
Yeah. Except when, oh, yeah, there we are. Cool. Mute this so I don't have the doubling. All right. Let me go back to StreamYard and make sure I'm looking at the comments. All right. Hello and welcome to this episode of the Hello and welcome to this episode of the Star Wars Generations podcast. I'm Matthew, your host. I'm joined by, unfortunately, only one of our two co-hosts. One of the others couldn't be here. Alex can't be with us, but we have the May Stan herself, the Ahsoka cosplayer, the forgiver of Anakin, the reminder of things, the person who has many different names that I can't hold, but is a princess of some sort or another on some planet somewhere in the galaxy. Erin, how are we doing today?
I'm doing pretty swell. I don't know if I'm excited or disappointed that the child has no longer made it into my intro, but I feel like I've grown since we first started here.
The child's always there. It's always like something I can draw upon when necessary. But we're not watching a show that has the child at the moment. So
exactly. Our child is Jackie, and she's very not like a child.
Very true. Very true. This will be going out in a day or two later, but I do want to just start by saying we're recording this on Juneteenth, which I have been on my own social media, as I know a lot of people are, really trying to lift up a lot of the voices of Black creators in different spaces, just because, you know, what Juneteenth is all about and paying attention. Like, folks like me tend to get a lot more of attention on social media, and there are some amazing creators of all kinds of backgrounds, but especially today we're paying attention to some Black ones. In the show notes, I'm going to list some of my favorites in terms of Star Wars creators, but I would definitely do some searching for some of the Black creators and what they have to say. This show obviously has a couple of very important Black characters, but also just, you know, when they're talking about anything about Star Wars or other things you love. So definitely check that out. With that being said, though, today we're talking about the Acolyte episode 4. We have a great bit of listener feedback that we will get into in just a few moments. But Erin, let me just first start by asking, what did you think of the episode?
Oh, I really liked it. I did. It's kind of like that. We talked about this a lot in the Bad Batch, but it's like the gang's all together, you know, like the whole squad shows up on one planet. So you kind of know things are about to get real. But yeah, I do love May as a character a lot.
Yeah.
So I like being able to spend more time with her after seeing episode 3 in kind of that like anthology of May and Osha, and just understanding her better. I don't know. I really loved what we saw between Jackie and Osha, and kind of the tea that goes down within the Jedi Council. Like, Saul was specifically taken off the mission, and he used Osha to get himself back on the mission.
Yep.
Like, my guy got booted, and he said, I'm gonna do it anyways. So there's lots of shit going down in this episode.
There is a lot, and I'm really enjoying it. I'm really enjoying how, like, the Jedi are not a monolithic institution by any means. And let's just start with Saul, because I think that Saul is a very good character who is a Jedi and is doing quite a lot of things that I think he's doing very well. And my microphone is moving around a little bit, so apologies if my sound is a little all over the place in this episode. Just trying to figure out the best way to position it. Give me 1 second. All right, we're going to try it there. Hopefully it stays fairly certain. For next episode, I will get it fixed. Come on. Okay. We're just going to stay here. So the point is, Saul is a very good character who I think is doing a lot of good. And I think, as a Jedi, is doing a lot of good. But the thing he tells Osha to draw upon, that he says gives her her strength, is her connection with her sister. And he talks about his connection with Osha and with May. Like, this is a man who is all about attachments and recognizing that attachments can have power. And I don't know if it's because the Jedi are a little more like, yeah, maybe that's okay, or they're just like, oh, there goes Saul with his attachment stuff again, but they're not quite as strict about it. But this is not what Mace Windu and Yoda would practice.
Absolutely not. This is not the Jedi Council that I know. Then again, Sol is not on the council, so there's probably reasons for that. He's giving very shoot, what's his name? Quinlan Voss vibes.
Yes.
Yes. That is, but just older and a little slower, so he can't quite do all the crazy shit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree. Like Sol is a really great character, but he's not a bad Jedi, but he's not a great Jedi. He's not like a model Jedi.
Right. Well, again, that's what it's to me. It's kind of like with Kanan, where like if the duty of the Jedi is to bring peace and justice and balance and harmony to the galaxy and to people who are in need, I think he's doing fantastic.
Yeah.
If it's to avoid attachment, he's really bad.
Mhm.
And so the question really becomes like, who gets? I think it's what I like about the show most right now. It's really asking us to define what is a good Jedi and who defines that.
Yeah. I mean, it's the forever question in Star Wars, I feel like. At this point, we've seen so many different iterations of Jedi, so many different people feeling the Jedi should be one way or another way. And at the end of the day, it's all flawed. But it is just interesting to see it play out kind of a few hundred years in the future, how we're still having very similar kind of debates throughout the order.
For sure. I also thought was really interesting was well, if we tell the council will tell the Senate, and then the Senate will tell the people, and the people have to have a very good, like, strong idea of us as unchallenged.
Mhm.
So therefore, we're not going to tell anybody. Because there's like, I know a lot of people are very concerned about, well, it's supposed to be that no one knows this or that kind of a thing, and we'll get to some of the details of that. But I like that very specifically we're saying off the bat, we don't have full, if one Jedi learns something, it does not mean everybody knows it. Because
Yeah.
people are actively hiding things.
Yeah. Yeah. Like the council does not know all at the end of the day. There's many councils happening.
Right.
Vernestra Rowe has just decided to make her own council, apparently.
Right.
But she kind of kills it, so go off. But about that, it's interesting because you said you see it as they can't appear challenged. To me, it's more I saw it or heard it as they were afraid of the people finding out that a Jedi left the order and is training someone in opposition to them. So not only like, yes, they shouldn't be like, they should be unchallenged, but the idea of we're the ones, like we are part of the problem. That's like what I saw as like the big part they're trying to hide why they don't want to tell the council or the Senate is like this. Let's look at the hollow. This person has been trained by a Jedi and this person is killing Jedi. That's a problem.
Yeah. No, I think that's a really good point. Especially when you think ahead to the Clone Wars, when Ahsoka is thinking of leaving, and she's told, and like later they're told when they're talking about Dooku, or not because that was beforehand, but this is repeated a number of times. Like I think only 16 or whatever it is have ever left the Order, and the idea that Dooku after he left could ever kill a Jedi is just unimaginable to Obi-Wan. Probably because Obi-Wan never learns of what's happening here because it's covered up. Like some of those always and forever type claims that were made about the Jedi in the Clone Wars, I think we're learning probably there's a lot of cover up involved.
Yeah.
Yeah. Instead, one of our bigger fans who's very active in the Discord, Corsicano, I think is the person you're.
Corsicano. I'm pretty sure that Alex schooled us on this last time.
Yes, you're right. Thank you. Corsicano wrote in because he's following along as anyone can if they're on YouTube. Yeah, the secrecy seems almost dishonest, which foreshadows some of the hubris in later eras. And yeah, I think that's exactly it.
Yeah.
It's a great point.
Real quick,
go ahead.
Just on the Jedi and kind of that scene, that opening stuff we get on Coruscant. When Saul comes to Osha and, asks her, will you come like finish this mission with me? It sucks. It's sad because she looks at him and she says, you want me to rejoin the Order?
Yeah.
And she looked so excited. And he said,
Yeah.
"No, not officially." Well, like, not officially, like, just this thing. And
Yeah.
she goes, "You need me to get to her." And it's just like, that sucks. Because
Yeah.
Osha's been just such a lovely character that's just so insecure and so self-doubting. And
Mm-hmm.
so, like, this idea of this master who clearly is still very fond of her, this master who came back to her and believed in her all these years, doesn't even want her back. Like, I just saw it as such a moment in her character, kind of.
Yeah.
Um, that kind of, to me, it seems like it's sealing, okay, May is not Jedi, May is maybe not Sith, Osha is not of the Jedi,
Yeah.
maybe, probably not Sith. I mean, that's an assumption I've made based on this one little thing, but, I don't know, it's just kind of interesting to see how that is.
No, I think that's a really good point, especially because to me, part of what it gets at is that the Jedi are just terrible at actually saying what they feel and what they want.
Mhm.
Because I think the way Saul is approaching it, it's kind of the classic like every bad TV romance where two people both assume the other one isn't interested and so say things that make the other feel the wrong way.
Yep.
I think to Saul's perspective, she has no interest in joining the Jedi.
Mhm.
And so he has to say, no, 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 I promise I'm not trying to pull you back into the Jedi. I know you don't want that. I just want you to help with this.
Mhm.
But of course, what she hears is, oh, you don't want me. You just want to use me for this other purpose. And
Yeah.
it's tragic because I do fully understand where both of them are coming from.
Mhm.
But if they could just say what they damn feel and want, it would be
If
so
you
much
could use your
easier.
words.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So very silly. So very silly. Um, let's get into May in this in just a moment. But I first want to ask, because it's been talked about a lot, what do you think about the young Kyle Mundy of it all?
What? Mr. Mundi just showing up. I'm like, first of all, Alex texted us about it and was like, I don't know, something about this confirms that he's a Sith because he didn't say anything, which is a joke, obviously. And I was
Yeah.
like, Mundi is with Palpatine, joking. But then I was like, well, first I was like, Alex, no fucking way. Like, there's no way he's alive because,
Mm-hmm.
to my knowledge, Syrians live less than a century. That's what I've seen before. Like
So,
you pointed out, Matthew, that is
mhm,
what's on Wikipedia, so technically it's legends at this point.
mhm. Well, it comes from a Legends novel, but then, so I thought it was only in Legends, and it's certainly possible in Disney that that's wrong. But then Alex pointed out something that was printed. Um, well, it was printed when it's in one of the guides to the prequel
Attack of the
movies.
Clones movie.
Yeah, which it says happened, which is during the Legends era, but is also an official Lucasfilm, like not a it is not, I believe, part of the extended universe that was supposed to be made non-canonical.
Yeah.
Now, the difference is only about, in theory, he is like the times don't exactly line up. Let's be clear about that because if
Yeah.
nothing else, right now the novel that was just released 3 days ago or so, maybe a week ago, about the High Republic describes a time that is only 100 years before what is happening in the show, and it's a time when another evil force has literally divided the galaxy in half, and there's
Mhm.
war and chaos and starvation everywhere. And the show opened by telling us that we've had hundreds of years of peace. So already, I think we're kind of playing a little fast and loose with the numbers, and I think we just kind of have to accept that instead of trying to line things up exactly. Um, so that's kind of where I'm at. And but I think the other question you're getting at is really gets to, I think, what the whole stuff with May revealed to us. And um, I'm on a bit of a rant. Actually, hold on a second. We have one or two questions from the chat that I was get into quickly. Uh, is it Kyle Mundy for sure? Our friend asks. It is. It says in the credits. The characters specifically named as young Kyle Mundy,
Yeah.
so that is confirmed.
Unfortunately, because that's the first thing I said. I said no, and
Mm-hmm.
then Alex was like, "It's in the credits." I was like, "Well, shit, I
Yeah.
can't. I can't argue with you now." But why is he here? Nobody likes him anyways. Well,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people in the fandom clown on Mundi because
Yeah.
he's got a big old head and he fucks a lot of women.
I kind of like that in the Clone Wars episode where Anakin is having the stupid competition about how many drones he's killed. That Kyle Mundy actually is like, no, actually, I've killed even more. He's like 47. But doesn't that make me the winner, or something like
Yeah,
that?
he's like, what do I get?
But okay, so the jokes about him, he must be Sith, he must be Palpatine. I think is a good lead into May because I think a lot of us have been assuming, myself included, that May is a Sith acolyte working to be an apprentice, working for an actual Sith. And this episode, I think, blows a lot of that out of the water and reminds us that is not what we've been told in the slightest. What did you think of May's turn and kind of where all that is right now?
Um, well, it's just very interesting. It was a very quick turn, but it also made total sense after the episode that we had
Mm-hmm.
last time, you know? Like, how do you say his name? Is it Chimere? Is that her companion?
Yeah, I think so. I
He
want to just
said,
call
you
him
know,
Jason
from The Good Place.
from The Good Place, but that's not
Same.
him. Although there was a little more of that character coming out today, and him being a little clownish, which I have some theories on. But yes.
There was, yeah. I've got lots of theories.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, but yeah, Chimere said something about, you know, OSHA being alive changes nothing. You know,
Right.
you still have this task to complete. And May's like, no, I can't do this. This is impossible. How am I supposed to kill a Jedi without a weapon when they can't attack people who don't have weapons? Like, this doesn't logic. It doesn't make sense. Like, this is clearly a fake task. And she just gets like frustrated with it. And it kind of convinces herself, like, fuck it. And then she's also thinking to herself, well, OSHA being alive changes everything
Right.
because her, and it's said in the episode, but like, what is important to her is her family, which
Right.
is OSHA. She doesn't really actually care about her training or anything else. It's just something she found to dive into when
Mm-hmm.
her entire world was shattered, when she thought she was completely alone. And now that's changed.
Right.
And so even though we kind of talked last episode about how there was a quick turn in May, just kind of like suddenly being like, I'm going to burn everything down. Um, and we had a quick turn here too, but this one made a lot of sense. And I think it paid off what we learned in the last episode very well of their
Yeah.
like loyalty to each other and just that little saying they used to do back and forth about like you or me and I'm you or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, what did you think about May this episode? What are your thoughts on that kind of turn?
Yeah, I think so. I do think that she brought into some of the dark side ideology or whatever it was, but I think it's kind of like, imagine if 10 years after the Clone Wars, Padme and Luke and like young Luke and Leia all of a sudden show up and Vader meets them and they're like, "Hey, Dad, how you doing?" Like,
Mm-hmm.
part of the whole ideology of the dark side is that you're driven by emotion, but you're driven mostly by your anger, by your rage, by your jealousy, by your hate. Well, what if all of that is focused on, like, the death of someone, and then you realize, like, wait, no, they didn't die.
Yeah, they're not dead.
Like, and I think part of the idea is that the hate so consumes you that eventually, like, not even that can pull you back, as evidenced by, like, I'm so wanting to protect Padme that I will go down this path that leads me to killing Padme. But I think, May is still quite young, and the idea that she
Mm-hmm.
hasn't done that yet, I'm a little lost on it because she has, like, it would be one thing if she hasn't really done anything with the dark side yet, but she's already killed a number of people. Like, she's assassinated 2 Jedi, and she's, I believe, killed other people in, like, getting to those Jedi. So we know that's a thing. As well as it does make me ask more questions about what happened in the flashback, because if her hatred is all about what happened to her sister and they took my sister away, that's one thing. But we also don't know how her parents died. And we
Mm-hmm.
don't know what guilt, like, according to the story we saw, she should feel all the guilt about what happened to her mothers and her whole
Mm-hmm.
community because it was her fire.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about how we don't think that's actually what happened, in which case, I do feel like there's a lot of other emotions that the story has told us she should be holding, even though it
Yeah.
doesn't. So, like, but her, so I don't feel like she's, like, totally gonna come back to the light side by any means, but her breaking with uh um her master and Kamir, and the question of if those two are the same person or not is one we'll definitely get into in a few minutes. Like, I don't think she's had a break from the dark side, But her having a break from that towards like, OSHA's my emotional focus, that's what I care about, that totally makes sense to me.
Yeah. And my thought on that would be that yes, she's killed people using, quote quote the dark side. Let's remember the witches.
Mm-hmm.
I think that she had that connection to that side of the force anyways. I think that growing up, that is something that would be considered acceptable to kill people if you need to get to where you're going. And so part of me is kind of like, it's a possibility. I don't have a huge opinion on it either way right now, but it's a possibility that she hasn't really delved too deep into the dark side itself because she's just pulling on what she was taught since she was a kid. Because
Right.
this tragedy happened when they were probably like 10, maybe, would you say?
Yeah.
I don't know very well what kids look like at different ages, but I would guesstimate about 10 or so.
Mm-hmm.
And so they've had 10 full years. They've had a decade to learn from all of their mothers and kind of
Right.
have this version of the force steeped, have themselves steeped in that version of the force. So yeah, that's just a thought I had as you were kind of running through that, is maybe
I think it's very
it's
true.
a bit of both.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's very true. And to me, the question that it leads to now is, what was she actually a part of? Because
Mhm.
we have not heard the word Sith said once on screen. We know that she has learned the dark side. As you said, she already had some exposure to it, but she's been learning more of it. She has been taught to hate the Jedi, and she's been taught to use a red lightsaber, and she has a master. But she is an acolyte, not an apprentice. And an
Mhm.
acolyte is not an official term, as far as we've learned, within the Sith
Mhm.
in the Disney canon.
Yeah.
It is in the extended universe canon, but again, that's not what we're dealing with. I think it's entirely possible that this is an offshoot, that this is some other group of dark side using people who are not actual Sith. And maybe she's going to be noticed by a Sith. It's like, I do think a Sith character is going to be revealed at some point. I think it's
Mm.
possible it's someone we've already seen. I actually have a little bit of a suspicion about Minestra. I'm pronouncing her name wrong, but the Green Jedi. I'm
No, I
probably
know.
entirely wrong about that. Just a little bit of suspicious vibes I get from her. I think I'm probably entirely wrong on that one. Um,
Interesting.
but at this point, especially with like how, like, she's not instantly killed for going off. Um, which not, I mean, it could be a good lesson to like teach her, like, to isolate her so that she has to turn back to the Sith, but it doesn't feel like the Sith to me.
Yeah.
So that's, and someone else pointed out the question. It might be that she actually isn't the acolyte. I think this actually was something that Coruscant was bringing up earlier. Someone I know definitely was, of like, maybe someone else is the acolyte of the show, and we just haven't, and they get
Mhm.
recruited in the course of the show. I think one very
Or
dark
maybe her
theory,
master is the acolyte.
that's certainly possible. Maybe Jackie or Yord is going to fall, or even Saul. Like, oh God,
Oh
what were we
God.
saying at the beginning? Saul's all about his attachments and emotions.
Saul, no.
What if he becomes the acolyte, and that's part of why Kyle Mundy and Yoda and all the rest are like, no, no, just no attachments. Look what happened to Saul.
That would be wild. Darth Saul.
Darth Saul? Maybe. I don't think so, but maybe.
That would be quite the plot twist, I'll tell you that.
Uh-huh.
I'm very curious about this Vernestra theory, but I also haven't read any of the books that she's in, so I don't have any basis of her character.
I don't remember her from the books because there's just a lot of characters.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any real basis for it. It's just a little bit of a like,
She's a little suspicious.
she's the one who's a little bit darker and a little bit like, we should do the things we have to do.
Mhm.
So I thought, I was just like, what if it was a Jedi? I guess it could be Vanestra. Like, it was literally something that just came to me right now.
Yeah,
Like, it's
just like
not
a
a well
thought.
thought out theory.
Got you, yeah. That does make sense though. She's incredibly stern and like grave in everything that she does.
Right,
She doesn't fuck around.
right. Which could all, I mean, that's Mace Windu as well. So she
Yeah, it
could
could
be
go a
taking
couple
Jedi.
ways, exactly.
Yeah. But yeah, what
Um
do you think? Are you convinced that these are Sith we're dealing with? Do you think it could be something else?
I mean, since we saw the first trailer and we saw those kind of like snapshots of witches, I never
Mm-hmm.
thought that the Sith were going to be involved in this. And at this
Mm-hmm.
point, like I kind of hope they're not, I
Yeah.
said it before, I'll say it again. I'm an easy to please fan. I'll be happy regardless, but I would kind of love to see the Sith not be involved. Or like you said, I would really appreciate if May is not the acolyte. That would be really cool if
Right.
it's misleading in that way. But also, I don't know. I have a lot of trust and love for the execs and whatnot at Star Wars. I think they always give us a really fun story. So
Yep.
I know however it's told, even if it's not the outcome that I predicted or I would have wanted, I'm sure that it'll be good regardless. But yeah, I'd prefer if it's not necessarily the Sith and it's kind of something different because that would be a
Yeah.
fun little trick that they played on everybody.
I think right now the only reason why like there's an argument that it has to be the Sith is that in Phantom Menace, Darth Maul appears, and all he does is have a red lightsaber and clearly know how to use the Force and know how to use a red lightsaber.
hmm
Which Qui-Gon says means he was trained in the Sith arts. So therefore, if Sharkman basically has the exact same things, like why is it that Qui-Gon would think Sith, but here we don't think Sith?
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, if that's just an inconsistency, I think I'm okay with that. Like I think I
hmm
don't. The story at this point has gotten so big with so many writers that I think we just have to accept there are going to be inconsistencies, and that
Yeah.
that's okay.
Yeah.
And if we spend all our time arguing about, and I know this is me sort of breaking with what I've been before, but I'm kind of willing to let go of some of that stuff. Of like, okay, actually, wait, I'm going to send this a bit. To me, there's a difference between a plot inconsistency and changing the emotional meaning of a scene.
hmm
So, for example, okay, why does he know it's a Sith and not just some other dark side user? There was something, maybe there's something else that Darth Maul did that we just didn't notice. Fine. But something like, your devotion to the ancient religion when it turns out it's a religion that actually every person in that room knew 20 years ago, or like when last we met I was but a student, now I am the master, when actually they met again 10 years after when we thought that we're talking about, like those to me feel different than this does. And maybe that I'm just justifying the ones I like, and I don't know, but does that make any sense in terms of like emotional tenor versus just like plot detail?
No, totally. Yeah. Cause some things are just semantics. Some of it's just like, I mean, the silly little things that we see explained away in the point of view book.
Yeah.
There's plenty of those little things. But I agree. There's some changes that it's like, okay, well, it's changing the way that people see the original material if they see the original material after the newer material.
Right.
And I see, yeah, how that's like very different and more frustrating and more
Mm-hmm.
of a problem to like diehard fans.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah, like, and I do think there's a sense of the Jedi are very invested in the idea that the Sith haven't been seen in a very long time. And
mhm,
so it's possible that when things turn up, they're like, nope, nope, can't be Sith, can't be Sith. And Qui Gon just isn't like, we know Qui Gon is very different from that. So, yeah. Coruscano writes, considering what a Kyber has to go through to be read, I feel like that's a lot of pain, which, in his opinion, their opinion equals Sith. I think that could be it, but because again, to create a red lightsaber, as we talked about last time, you have to inflict a huge amount of like torture and pain to the Kyber crystal itself and have it be around that. But I think there can be. I think that's the point that other people can use the dark side, like
mhm.
and be very and that can be people can be very sadistic and torturous and evil, without them being Sith necessarily.
Yeah.
So, what do you think about Darth Sharktooth?
Oh, is that who you're talking about, Shark Guy?
Yeah,
I was so fucking confused. I'm like, what are they talking about right now? I
yeah,
was
the
like, are
guy with
you
the
calling
helmet that has like the weird teeth.
yeah, the big old mouth. It reminds me of the oh, it's just me, y'all. I'll tell you what I was thinking till Matthew comes back. It reminds me of the mouth of Sauron from the Lord of the Rings. That creepy little like with like a big old mouth. That's what apparently Shark Guy reminds me of. Um yeah, I guess we're getting into the Sith reveal.
Wait,
There you go.
that
Welcome back.
yeah, we started talking about the shark. I apparently referred to the Sith person or the dark side person who I should hold in high reverence, and was immediately kicked out of the chat. So start that again with all due reverence to the very scary person with the lightsaber and the teeth on their helmet. What did you think?
Yeah, so what I just said to everyone who's here that wasn't you is that this character really reminds me of the Mouth of Sauron from the third Lord of the Rings movie
Oh yeah, that's a
with
good
like
one.
the helmet that comes out and it's just like a literally just a mouth. The name is what he is. He's a mouth. That's what that made me think of. Which that character is very gross and menacing. So I was just like,
Yeah,
ew. Like honestly, just ew. And the way that they floated down from the trees, I was like, oh God, I want to crawl out of my skin. Like that makes me so uncomfortable. I don't know why Osha turned and just kind of stared. Like, bitch,
yeah.
run. I don't get it.
I didn't think I could be scared by another dark side user, but like you knew that they were going to ignite a lightsaber, but just the timing of him getting so close to Osha, and then just that snap hiss sound
Meow.
and the red booming, I like sat back in my chair. It was so well done.
Oh, it was great. It was really good. Yeah. I like how they did that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I don't
Who
know.
do you
Other
think?
than that, I don't have a ton of. Or wait, are we going to talk about what we're going to talk about?
Yeah, is he Jason or
I think
Quinn?
he might be Jason. He might be Chimera, if that's how you say it. Um, because like my guy talking about, oh, I owe him a debt. Oh no, I care about you. No, it's not an impossible task. Talking
Mm-hmm.
about, oh my god, just OSHA changes nothing. Like literally, you could not be more obvious unless he's not the Sith, in which they have played us all, or at least have played me, because I really feel like, okay, sorry, I used the word Sith when we just talked up and down about how this person probably isn't a Sith.
Sith adjacent.
Yes. um, but yeah, I kind of really hope it's him because I love a good goofy villain. I love a villain that like isn't what they seem.
Yeah, it's funny. I was really hoping it was him for that same reason. This episode, I feel like they hit you over the head with it so many times that if it is, I'll feel like, okay, you did a good setup in the first three episodes. I wish you hadn't made it quite so obvious in this fourth episode. Um, but otherwise, that's fine and good writing, you know. But I also think it's possible that it's supposed to be a red herring and that it's going to be someone else, or that, as I said, like the person in the mask is Quinnen. I can't remember quite what is it.
It's Qimir. So I've been saying Chimera.
Chimera. I think it's right. So I think it's very possible that it's him, and they maybe overhit the reveal of it. But I think it's possible it's someone else. Or what I think it might be is it is him. But as I said, the big reveal is going to be that he's not a Sith and that he's actually being played by someone else who is just kind of watching from the shadows.
Mm.
Because here,
I had that thought.
good.
Oh, I just had the thought along the way that like maybe he was the acolyte, and he still
Yeah,
is a separate person from Sharkface. I
that's
would prefer
possible
if he
too.
just was Sharkface, but that would be interesting if like, yep, he's not what he seems, but they didn't like fully tip their hand in this episode.
Yeah, I think that's very possible. The other thing that I keep thinking about, especially in terms of being kind of Sith adjacent, is, and again, this is an extended universe comment, but I think it's relevant here. If you remember in those Darth Bane books that we like so much, with the exception of how the female characters are written, um, one of the things that Bane talks about when he creates the rule of two, again, it's extended universe, but I think it's still relevant, is the idea that they want these little groups of like pseudo dark side people to pop up every now and then so the Jedi can stamp them out and go, oh, look, we defeated them. They were just pretending they weren't really the Sith.
Yeah.
Pat ourselves on the back. This means the Sith are really all gone.
We won. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think that's the most likely thing is that it's something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But can we talk a bit about did you have more to say on this subject before we
No,
move
go for
on?
it.
Okay, can we talk a bit about just like Osha's journey in this episode, right?
Yeah.
And I have a couple points when I bring this up. So like I talked about on Coruscant, you know, she kind of was very hopeful that maybe Saul was asking her back to the Jedi Order, and that hope was kind of just crushed. And then oh, well, first I just want to get into Basil. Love that character.
That was
Such a
great.
funny little thing. I really loved that when Osha goes over to Jackie, she asks, "Is he or they with us?" And I just like I really loved that, especially because Amandla Stenberg uses she they pronouns. So I kind
Yeah.
of liked that they got to use those pronouns in like a Star Wars on-screen thing.
Uh-huh.
I always love little nods like that to the community. But anyways, and so we see that she's kind of developing this friendship with Jackie. Um and kind of leaning on her, but she has just all this conflict with Yord, right? Yord. Dear
Yep.
God, this guy. Ugh, he's the worst, but he's fine. Anyways, they first get to the planet, he's like, "You need to give me that gun because you're a civilian." And she's
Mm-hmm.
like, "Okay." And he's like, "No, OSHA." She's like, "I bet like if you also don't want me on the mission, like join the club." And he's like, "No, I'm just worried about your safety." She's like, "What the fuck?" Anyways, but it's interesting that like Jackie is someone new that she's clearly OSHA has started to bond with,
Uh-huh.
but when she needs something, she still goes to Yord
Yeah.
because they grew up together. And she goes and she asks him, basically says, "If it comes to it and we need to kill May, you have to do it because I
Mm-hmm.
can't."
Yeah. And even
And
Yord kind of like appreciates that. Like he doesn't say like you have to break your connection with her, you know? Like he
mhm,
seems okay with, and maybe it's because he sees her as not a Jedi and non-Jedi can have attachments,
yeah,
but and like the rivalry makes a lot of sense because you know, like basically like she's the ex, you know?
yeah.
He is Saul's Padawan, she was before. And it's a little weird because they're the same age. I think what it must have been is like that
Wait,
Yord.
what? No, they were younglings at the same time. Yord was not Saul's Padawan. Jackie is.
Oh, that's right. Okay, you're right.
Yep.
You're right. You're right. They were just younglings same time. Okay. But so he hangs
So,
out enough with Saul now and kind of wants Saul's respect.
yeah.
So it is definitely
um
that kind of an idea.
But yeah, I did have like a quote from him after she says that. He said, "I've known you since we were younglings. May has always been your wound. Maybe Saul brought you here to face her, but maybe he brought you here to face yourself."
Yeah.
And I was like, damn, like at the end of the day, like he might be all cold to her and she might be all, teasy to him or whatever, but it's just that thing of like, I love the feeling of like childhood friends. Like I
Yeah.
recently got in contact with a friend who I was like, I mean, we've always stayed in contact, but we just hadn't hung out in like 5 years or something.
Mm-hmm.
And we hung out and like there's something so wonderful about like feeling so seen by someone who like knows where you came from.
Yeah.
And I think that that was portrayed well in that conversation between the two of them is like you don't get along, but like just having that history with somebody, they know something about you
Yeah.
and they know how to like encourage you or how to like really get a point to you.
I mean, Paul and I have been friends since high school, which is coming up on 30 years now of our friendship. You know, I mean, it's
Mhm.
been a part of my life for a very long time, and he knows things about me that like my wife doesn't know. That I'm like, not that I keep secrets from her, but just that he was there for parts of my
Over
life that
time, yeah.
no one else has. So yeah, I totally get that. Totally get that.
Yeah.
We could say so much about this episode. I want to just go and read this awesome comment that we got, and then we can use that to wrap up. And we will have a quick bonus section about we are going back to those stories from a certain point of view. And so Coruscano writes, "I'm excited by the possibilities inherent in a story with characters I know nothing about, but I feel that I'm still kind of waiting for the show to find its footing. I'm watching episode 4 now and still wondering where it's going. Is May the Acolyte? Is the red-bladed mystery man or someone we don't expect like maybe Saul? Okay, so it was Saul Coruscant who gave us that. I'm starting to get the impression that we as the audience need to simply trust that the story will take. Uh, I'm starting to get the impression that we as the audience need to simply trust that the story will make sense and have a satisfying ending. I find each episode to be simultaneously interesting yet frustrating and cliche." And I'll just stop there. Yeah, I totally agree. And honestly, this is a show that I think would work much better as a binge because
Mm.
it feels like it's very intentionally week by week giving us one more piece of the puzzle. But because of just the world we live in, that means that we, after each week, we're like, okay, it has to make sense now. So let's spend a week debating it when we still don't know most of the rest of the puzzle yet. And I think that's a really good reminder of, yeah, like the stuff we saw in May's flashback doesn't make sense. So let's wait to
Mhm.
see what else we learn about it. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
I kind of chuckled to myself there because Matthew, we've watched many shows together over the course of the last year or so, and you say
Mhm.
that about every show. You just want to binge, which is so valid, but it's just kind of funny.
Yeah, I think it's true. I think honestly, if it's going to be an episodic show, a week to week
Mhm.
show, I want it to be more like I don't mind episodic. I
Mhm.
think Monster of the Week like I would love a show that isn't about a huge plot, or if it is, it's in the background, but
Mhm.
just gives us like week to week the different adventures that the Jedi go on. I would love that, but I think it has to be that. I think a serialized story, episodic, is what just doesn't work for me.
Yeah, it's like you want it released season by season kind of an idea,
Yeah,
which
exactly.
makes sense. I'm sure a lot of people relate.
Yeah. Continuing with that comment, I think the episode 3 podcast was right on. Thank you so much. In that the flashback episode was one faulty memory, manipulated recollection of events, and we'll see another perspective in a later episode. I certainly hope so. At this point, I'm cautiously optimistic, but only because I love Star Wars. Unfortunately, I'm concerned that for each ending that will be amazing, there'll be like 100 that would just be a huge disappointment. After Kenobi, I absolutely see so many ways that this could misfire, and I'd be totally heartbroken with this premise that has so much potential, just like Kenobi. Just like Kenobi. For the record, I personally hated Kenobi, and I literally held my head in my hands after the first 2 episodes and said out loud, "I am so disappointed."
Oh
I hope the
no.
Acolyte works on a high note. This is funny too because my today's Juneteenth, as I said, so we had a day off. My partner and I wound up binging Obi-Wan because she had never seen it before, and I was really wondering if I'd like it more in a second route. I don't. I would say though that I do like it a lot more. I like the first 5 episodes quite a lot, and I think the sixth episode is completely irrelevant and just makes everything worse. Like if Kenobi just like tricked Vader and got away, and they didn't have that fight, if Riva never goes to Tatooine because there's no reason for her to do so, I just think it would have been much better. But anyways, that's a little bit of editorial comment to the side. But back to this, what do you think of this episode of like that we just have to trust, even though some of us may have been disappointed by some things so far?
Yeah. Um okay, I've got a few more little things here before we go.
Wait, you have
Um
no reaction to that whatsoever?
I did that thing, the ADHD thing where my brain kind of restarted. So I'm so sorry. I
Oh, no
just
problem.
don't remember what you said.
That's fine. That's fine. All right. What was the last thing you wanted to go on?
I'm so sorry.
No, no, don't worry about it. I'll cut it out.
Um no, just um I like that we're seeing Osha becoming more in touch with the force as this goes on. You know, she said something about like she sensed that roly-poly creature thing.
Mm-hmm.
And she was very affected of the fact that she knew it was a creature when she touched it. You know, it wasn't an accident that she touched it and she disturbed it and now it's dead.
Right.
And like she really took that on. And Jackie, some point later in the conversation, said something about we're not defined by what we lose, we're defined by what we survive.
Yeah.
And I think
What?
that that's like a very interesting, it's an interesting thing to think about. I don't know that I fully agree personally,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, like I said, I just like their little relationship. But the most interesting thing we got this episode, in my opinion, is when Saul says, "You're going to face your past. Both of us will. Once we get May safely to the ship, I'll explain everything. I promise." What the fuck did you do, Saul? What did you do?
Well, I think the "what did you do" applies on two levels because by all the laws of there's the like he's going to explain the past, what actually happened to May and him, to May and her and him, but also by all the laws of TV cliche, that means he cannot make it back to the ship.
I know. I'm so upset.
Like he just signed his own death warrant by saying that.
He did. Maybe he becomes the acolyte. Yeah, maybe. That's why he doesn't explain anything.
I hope they write that cliche because I do want someone to just like
I'm so
tell us
curious.
what happened, but we'll see.
Please,
We'll have to
somebody
see.
explain. I feel like a Dalek. Explain.
I do want to.
Explain.
I do want to say one thing about what you said. Also, I love that moment of her recognizing that by her interacting with this world, she disturbed one of the creatures to the point where they thought it was a threat and wound up killing it. Because if you remember, one thing that I talked about a lot and Paul talked about a lot in
Mhm.
The Mandalorian, but also in some shows since then, is I don't really love it when people go to other our heroes go to other places
Mhm.
and going to the territory of predatory animals that become predatory because that's what they do. And our heroes have to kill them. And we're like, oh, good, have a fun fight scene against that big scary monster, which is actually just an animal living its best life.
Yeah.
And so I kind of liked her having a bit of guilt of like, oh, I need to be more aware of how my presence affects those around me because
Mhm.
it's something about like our relationship with animals, but also just our surroundings. Like, yeah,
Mhm.
when you're going to a strange new place, be aware of it and don't just assume you have the full ability to go where you want and touch what you want and do what you want.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I did like that moment.
mm-hmm. Last thing I'll say, just it's a fun wrap up and kind of proves the point of like different people can like or dislike things for very similar or completely different reasons. Coruscano pointed out that it's hilarious because he tells people to only watch the last 2 episodes. So he and I did not like Obi-Wan, but for very different reasons. So there you go.
Oh, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
See, if we ever want to have an after chat about Obi-Wan, I recently one of my clients at one of my jobs had listened to the episode where we talked about it and was like, "Actually, I have thoughts." And he's like in his mid 50s, so I'd love to share those opinions at some point, but that doesn't apply today. So y'all will
Yeah,
just have to join our member club.
definitely. We'll do a membership episode sometime soon. We'll do a feedback episode sometime soon, but definitely a membership episode as well. Members, of course, get full access to all the bonus content, including what we're about to get. You also get ad-free episodes. You get all sorts of goodies. And most importantly, you help keep the lights on, help support us, which is so very needed and so very appreciated. Um, please think about that. Please think about how to giving us feedback. All the notes are in the show notes. On behalf of myself, Aaron, and Alex, who cannot be here, thank you all so much. Have a happy Juneteenth. Please check out some Black creators, and we have spoken. Stay classy wherever the hell you are.
No, I just looked at all these quotes and not a single thing. Maybe Soul brought you here to face her, but maybe he brought you here to face yourself.
I love the sort of like, I am a college student who's read one book on philosophy and understands everything now. Put into that voice. That was so perfect.
Thank you.
All right, now let's have our feedback episode. Not feedback, you know what I mean.
Members content.
What's called added muscle? Okay. Members, welcome back. You are the lifeblood of this. Thank you so much for being a part of it. So today we're talking about yet another story from the from a certain point of view, a New Hope book, great book. Definitely pick it up. And this story is called Added Muscle by Paul Dini. Now it's from a very different part of fandom, but Aaron, do you know who Paul Dini is and the significance he has, especially in the character he created?
No. Please educate me.
So he has been a writer for a number of parts of Hollywood, but especially for a lot of animated stuff. He wrote a number of episodes of Batman the Animated Series, and he created the character of Harley Quinn. So if you're a
Uh-huh.
Harley Quinn fan, you have Paul Dini to thank. And he's done a lot, like there's so much stuff where you'd be like, oh yeah, that was Paul Dini. So great author. Tell us about the story.
Yes. So this story is kind of like a play-by-play from Boba Fett's mind of the first time that we see him from that deleted scene from the first movie, right? That scene is deleted and then re-added.
Yeah, it's the
Okay.
oh Han, it's where Han tells Jabba the Hutt that he's such a good human being.
Exactly. Exactly. And Boba's like, "Are you buying this bullshit?" And then he's like, "Holy crap. Jabba gave him the extension." Like, what? Um Yeah, I liked it. It was funny. It finally gave us the answer to the sweet, sweet question. What does no disintegrations mean? Sorry, I just tapped on my table. I hope the audio didn't pick that up too much. I'm done. But what could it mean, right? And so here it's clarified that the person who created this was Vader himself. He was the problem. You know what? That's fucking stupid. Obviously, he's the one who says the quote. Anyways.
Do you want to restate that, or do you want me to do it?
Yeah, I'm just gonna re-go. So yeah, it answers the question of what does no disintegrations possibly mean. Basically, there's a job that Fett had worked for Vader in the past, where it was some rebel spies and
Mm-hmm.
they were throwing some kind of weapon at him, and he had a weapon accelerator, he said,
Okay.
which caused flash boom and 3 piles of tiny ash. And then Vader refused to pay him because no payment, I guess. And Fett has this real grudge about it. He's like, God,
Uh-huh.
this bitch won't let me disintegrate, doesn't take my word.
Yep.
And so that's just kind of funny, a funny little thing we got to see here. I always love just the little nuggets of explanation
Mm-hmm.
that they put in these stories. Like, it's a short story. It was 4 minutes,
Yep.
straightforward, but yeah.
That one was fun. I also really like this one, which I'm going to read, because the entire thing is just Boba's stream of consciousness
Mhm.
while he's sitting there watching these two meet. And he's talking about how there was the attack on these settlers, and he knows that, which we know is Owen and Aunt Beru and Luke, and that Boba knows about this because he knows Vader cares about it. And he
Mhm.
says, someone, meaning amateurs, tried to fake it like a Tusken raid. Probably stormtroopers, judging by the random blast shots. Some might call them precise. Me, I say they can't hit the butt end of a bantha. Which, because everyone always wondered, how is it that Obi-Wan says only stormtroopers are so precise, when for the next every movie, before and after, stormtroopers can't hit the broadside of a bantha.
Yep.
So I just love that, like, yeah, someone might say it's precise because they have no idea what the hell they're talking about.
Because they're a crazy desert wizard.
Yep.
Like,
Yeah, I think overall, I think this is a very fun story. The fact that it's written about a deleted scene that honestly should stay deleted because it's terrible, um, makes it even better for me because this sounds like a random bounty hunter. It does not sound at all like the Boba Fett that we've come to know and love through the man. And
mhm.
granted, he's a very different person by then, but like, it just was like I was trying to hear this in the voice of either um, B. Bradley Baker or no, what is it?
D. Bradley Baker or Tamura Morrison.
D. Bradley Baker, thank you, or Tamara Morrison. And I couldn't do it. I was like, this just doesn't sound like any of the versions of the character we've had. But it is a lot of fun, and it's just a sort of like, to me, it kind of reads like a Tumblr post, like someone would write. Like it's just really funny and has a lot of pointed asides, and
It is.
does also explain. Apparently, there's a couple of like Wookiee braids on Boba's uniform
Mhm.
that he like turns to make sure Chewbacca can see as a way of like, because he's very like has this kind of grudge against Wookiees and wants to like
Yeah.
fight Chewbacca. Um, yeah, it's fun. It's funny. It makes pointed comments about a couple things like the disintegration thing. It doesn't add or take away anything to the Star Wars universe as a whole.
Mhm.
It's just a fun Tumblr post that's worth reading.
Yeah. It's fun, it's short. I kinda had to go through it twice because I'm gonna be honest, the constant stream of consciousness was a little difficult for me to follow,
Mm-hmm.
just being that he was reacting to quotes by other people that we weren't hearing. I mean,
Yeah,
shouldn't have it's not that hard to follow, but I had to reread a few things because I was like, "Wait, what?"
yeah,
But yeah, I agree. Fun little story, nothing too deep, but entertaining.
definitely, definitely. All right, well, Aaron, thank you so much. Members, thank you so much. We have spoken.
Well